Hi everyone, Charlie Black 20 back once again with another movie review that I promised you for the movie Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Now, I'm going to get right into the movie. What we have is we return to the island of Isla Nublar approximately 6 weeks to 6 months after the closing of Jurassic World after the incident, where these what looks like mercenaries are attempting to retrieve the Indominus Rex's DNA through cutting off the bone using a submersible submarine, a very small one, piloted by two guys who are going into the mosasaur, I guess you would say tank, and they use the sub and a saw on it to cut away one of the ribs from the skeleton of the Indominus Rex, because obviously it's been eaten by the mosasaur, at least the meat has, and they float it to the surface, where it's on a tracker beam, tracking beacon, and it's retrieved by the helicopter. While this one guy who's working and it's raining, it's storming, there's lightning everywhere. This guy is attempting to, he's using what power he can to get the gates to the mosasaur pen open, to close it. He's communicating through the radio about what's going on. He's got this tablet, and he says, I'm shutting the gate, and the submersible should leave. And as the submersible is backing away into the light, or into the darkness, we see the mosasaur behind them opening its jaws and closing it around the sub, and then the lights at the top disappear from the submersible, so it appears to have been eaten by the mosasaur, which to me makes no sense, but I'll get into my critiques later. Then the helicopter has landed back down at the landing pad near the guy who's controlling the power, and he's trying to raise up the sub, and the other guys are yelling at him, come on, come on, come on, get back in here, because they see something behind him. And we see in the lightning behind him, we see flashes of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And he finally turns around, sees it right behind him, basically. And he makes a run for it to the helicopter, which is taken off. And he's like, no, don't leave me, stop, all that stuff. And they throw him a ladder. And the Tyrannosaurus, he's thrown away his tablet that's controlling, like, shutting the gates to the mosasaur tank. And the T-Rex steps on it before the gates can close, which malfunctions it and keeps the gates open, releasing the mosasaur. But he gets on the ladder. The T-Rex grabs the bottom of it and starts shaking it around, shaking the helicopter. The pilot's telling them, cut the rope, cut the ladder. The ladder actually breaks underneath the guy holding onto the ladder. And he's cheering, and the others are cheering like, we got away, we got away. And then, of course, the mosasaur jumps up and eats the guy, ladder and all. And we flash into the helicopter where we see the Indominus Rex's bone in a kind of a case, a medical case of some kind. And we flash over to Claire, where we get another scene of her in an elevator. She's carrying coffee. She looks a lot more down to earth now, and she is working to save the dinosaurs that have been left on Isla Nublar after the park closed. And it's the Save the Dinosaur Foundation, I guess you would call it. There have been protests all across the world trying to get governments to save these dinosaurs in the past 3 years. And in the past 3 years, the island's dormant volcano has become extremely active, and there's lots of rumblings, lots of lava, lots of smoke, and people are sure that the volcano is going to erupt soon and kill the dinosaurs. And so Jeff Goldblum, as Ian Malcolm, testifies before this Senate hearing, U.S. Senate hearing, about what they should do about the dinosaurs, if the government should intervene or not. And he basically says, no, as sad as it is, I do believe that we should let nature take its course. And these animals were man-made, and this shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have allowed this genetic engineering to happen. And so Claire, she's on the phone with this senator trying to get her to give a vote to saving the dinosaurs if she can. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. The Senate committee comes out and says, no, we are not going to help these de-extinct, which is their term for extinct animals brought back to life, de-extinct. The government is not going to intervene in this. It's a privately held island, basically. It's a privately owned venture, so the government's not going to interfere. As sad as it is for the animals, we are not going to interfere. And at that very moment, after they get that news, Claire gets a phone call from a employee of a Mr. Lockwood, who we learned was John Hammond's business and basically best friend in building the genetic engineering, genetic DNA, building the dinosaurs, basically building up from this lab and achieving their goal of creating dinosaurs. And he asks for a meeting with Claire, and she goes to meet with Lockwood, and we meet another guy, Eli Mills, who is making a bunch of jokes about how he used to be idealistic and smart, and that he is the person leading Lockwood's fortune into the future. He's giving us a lot of backstory, like we learn about Lockwood having a granddaughter, Maisie, after his daughter died in a car crash many years ago. And he tells Claire that they're going to try and save the dinosaurs in a private venture, that they're going to do it themselves. It's not exactly illegal, but they're going to do it themselves, and that they have a private island sanctuary that Lockwood has secured through his assets, that they're going to take the dinosaurs to live free. But he says that they're going to need Claire to help them get a lot of the dinosaurs because of the chips they have implanted in them, and that they need her handprint and her ID because it will allow them to track the dinosaurs through those chips. But he also says there's one dinosaur in particular we're having a lot of trouble with, which is the Velociraptor Blue, who is the last of her kind. She is the second most intelligent life form on the planet. And he says, we can't catch her, and we'd like you to get somebody who is well known to have trained these raptors. And obviously he's talking about Owen Grady, who Claire does go to see. He's building this cabin, and it's obvious she's very nervous about seeing him. And he is not surprised why she's there. And he says, you want us to go to a island full of dinosaurs that has a volcano that's going to explode at any minute. Yeah, what could go wrong? And she basically hits him with the blue is alive, and that's obviously the one thing that she knew she could get him with. And she says, you raised her. You really just going to leave her to die? And he's like, yeah, I am. And I think we know as an audience that he doesn't really mean it, but he sold it to her at the moment. And she tells him, listen, you're on the manifest for this plane. If you're going to meet us there tomorrow morning. And we see him in his van, trailer, whatever, watching videos of him with the raptors as babies. Get on the plane with Claire, Owen, Franklin Webb, who is played by Justice Smith, who is basically a technology guy. He's really, really good with technology, but he's definitely not an outdoors guy at all. And we've got Zia Rodriguez, and she is a paleo-veterinarian, but she has never treated or seen a real dinosaur yet. So she is coming along with them because they're not sure what they're going to encounter. Franklin's there to help them with the technology. And they get to the island, and it's obvious that the volcano is going to blow at any second. And they meet with this guy, Ken Wheatley, who is the expedition facilitator. He leads them to the old visitor center. They're armed to the teeth with both live ammo and tranq guns. Then they get to this, I think it's an underground bunker, an underground control room. Claire uses her fingerprint to find all the dinosaurs, and they see there's a lot of them at this dock, at this eastern dock. And then they track down Blue, and Owen and Wheatley and his team go, and Zia, go with him. And they can't get within more than maybe, I think, maybe a mile of Blue, and then they get out of the truck, and he starts tracking Blue on foot, and he tells Wheatley's team, wait for my signal. And we do see Blue again. She surprises him, and he brings her a piece of meat, and he tosses it to her. She doesn't catch it. It just hits her snout. And then he starts giving her commands like this, you know, like in the previous movie. And she starts smelling for him. And it's obvious that she's starting to recognize him, and he's got his hand really close to her head. And then she gets hit by a tranq dart, which makes her go kind of crazy. And Owen's like, I told you to wait for my signal, Wheatley. And they circle around, all these men with these guns. And Blue goes after one of the guys right away. And he gets knocked to the ground. And Blue is obviously in a lot of distress. And her claw's digging into the sky. And he pulls out his pistol and fires it up. Live ammo. And Wheatley's yelling, don't shoot, don't shoot. Damn it. And then Owen tries to attack Wheatley. Wheatley just pulls up his gun, shoots Owen with a tranq dart. And Zia runs to Owen before it can fully incapacitate him. Basically, it's like less than half of the vial has gone into him right at that moment, and she pulls it out, throws it away. She picks up the gun and aims it at Wheatley, who all of his men just aim their guns at her, and she says, if that animal bleeds to death, you don't have anything. And he basically says, listen, I'll tell you what. Even though we've got the drop on you, what's going to happen is this. You're going to treat that animal, and if it dies, I'll shoot you. And they leave Owen to die. And they take Zia and Blue. And we see a phone call, and we see that there's more rumblings. The volcano is getting more and more dangerous. And we see the cracks in the concrete walls of the control room starting to happen. And we hear in the background the mercenaries yelling, let's get out of here, pull the plug, go! And the doors shut behind Claire and Franklin, leaving them locked in there. And they try to use the keys to get out, the keypad, but it says loading error. It says error. So they're being left behind as well. And they keep trying through different keys and different things, but nothing is working until they finally open this one door through a tunnel that leads to the rest of the park. And what comes out is this, I forget what kind of dinosaur it's called, but it's basically a carnivore. And they have this moment where it's being held back by the lava that's pouring through. It's like half of the room is basically covered by the lava. They have to grab a chair that the thing tries to bite, and they use it to get up this ladder, this emergency ladder, escape hatch, and they have to close it on the thing, on its head, so it doesn't come after them. Which it's one of those moments. And Franklin's screaming like a really high-pitched scream at that point. All this while they're getting out of that mess, Owen is recovering from the tranq after this dinosaur has kind of licked him up and down with its tongue, and running from the lava. And he has to avoid the lava with some really crazy kind of body acrobatic. And he sees Claire and Franklin at the top of the tunnel, or at the escape hatch, and he's yelling at them to run. And behind them, the volcano is completely erupting. It's just lava's everywhere, smoke is everywhere. It's shooting out these flaming rocks. And all these dinosaurs are running for the cliffs. And Claire, Franklin, and Owen are just running for their lives. They get behind this big-ass log, and they also find one of the gyrospheres there that's still kind of intact, but obviously not working, and it's open. So Claire and Franklin get in. But before Owen can get in, they are basically attacked by this carnotaur, and it's trying to eat one of the other dinosaurs at first, which knocks around the gyrosphere, causing the door of it to close. And Owen's about to get eaten by the carnotaur, and then the T-Rex shows up again, knocking the carnotaur aside. And then when there's more eruptions going on behind it, it also takes off running. They do take off running themselves again through the gyrosphere, and Owen running. And they go over the cliff, where they see a lot of the dinosaurs drowning, and they're also getting hit by, and the gyrosphere starts leaking because it's been abandoned for so long. It's got a lot of rust, a lot of leaks, and so they're sinking. And they're also getting hit by these flaming rocks that have not cooled enough. And they put holes in the glass, which causes even more leaks. Owen jumps in the water, obviously, and he's trying to break them out. And then Claire and Franklin and Owen, they use his knife and their feet to finally break out, and they swim to the surface. And they get on the beach, where they see a lot of these animals being taken on in these cages or on these cranes, these ropes, over to the East Docks. And Claire's like, it was all a lie. It was all a lie, bastards. And Owen says, not all of it. We can get to the docks. And we also see Wheatley. He takes a wrench of some kind of a pliers, a huge pliers, and uses it to pull up one of a dinosaur's teeth, I think a stegosaurus, and he pulls it out, and he adds it to his collection of dinosaur teeth for his necklace. Ugh. And so they start to get, all the mercenaries are starting to get on the boat when they see all this lava, and the eruption is just coming towards them. So Owen, Franklin, and Claire get to this one truck that's been abandoned by them, and they gun it, basically. And they make it to the boat, where Claire puts on a cap, hides her hair, so they can't see her while she's in the driver's seat. Owen and Franklin are in the back. And as the boat's pulling away, we see a Bronchiosaurus come through the fire and the ash and smoke, and it stands on its hind legs, bellowing, 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 screaming, basically, in its death throes. And we see the silhouettes through the smoke as it slowly dies. And on the boat, we see Owen, Franklin, and Claire are basically just hiding as best they can. And they find Zia, who is with Blue, who has a muzzle on. And she's also still bleeding. She's in bad shape. She's not doing well. And when Zia sees them, she says, what we need to do is remove the bullet, but she needs a blood transfusion for me to do that without killing her. And we need it from a carnivore that has 2 to 3 fingers on its hands, no more than 3. And the only one that they have on board that's the same or similar is the T-Rex, which they did grab. They grabbed the T-Rex. So they, Owen and Claire take like a really, really large needle and a very big bag and the tube, and they go to it. The Tyrannosaurus is asleep. She's been drugged, basically. And it's also can't move, basically, because it's confined into this tight truck, basically, a really big metal truck. And they're trying very, very carefully not to wake her up. And Owen gets pushed to the side of the cage by her head. Claire jumps on top of its neck like she's in a rodeo. And then she literally jams the needle into the T-Rex's very, very thick skin to get to a vein, which almost wakes her up. And then as the blood is flowing into the bag, they get the bag filled, and then they see and hear the door to the T-Rex truck close. It's been closed by the mercenaries who saw it was open. And so that wakes up the T-Rex, who sees Owen through its one eye and starts roaring, and breaking its leg free and scratching across the truck. And Claire manages to climb up through the top. And Owen, after she opens the door, he literally somersaults through the Tyrannosaurus's mouth and out, and then they shut the door. And he's like, do you still have the bag? And she holds it up and says, let's go. And they take it to Zia, who starts her operation to get the bullet out of Blue. And we're flashing between Owen's face and his memories of raising Blue when she was just a little tiny thing, baby, basically. And he's really pleased that Zia says, okay, I got the bullet, she's going to be okay. At the same time this has been going on, we are seeing phone calls and discussions between Wheatley and Eli Mills about him capturing Blue and that he wants his bonus. So obviously Eli Mills, he's talking, and he loses his temper at Maisie, who is the granddaughter of Lockwood, who has been traveling throughout the mansion that Lockwood lives in on his estate, looking through the dinosaur fossils. She scares her caretaker. She talks to her grandfather about looking like her mother. Lockwood tells her she looks just like her mother every day. And we see Eli talking with this auctioneer guy, who's obviously a black marketeer guy. He knows he knows a lot of rich guys, and he basically is an underground salesman, an underground auctioneer. Basically, he's not a good dude. He's somebody who works in the shadows, selling things that shouldn't be sold. And Eli talks about how they're going to sell these dinosaurs for seed money, and they're going to use that money to invest in future stuff of weaponized dinosaurs. We're going to use the Indominus Rex's DNA that Henry Wu built and combine it with Raptor and the Raptor Blue to create a new dinosaur called the Indoraptor, and use it to weaponize dinosaurs and sell them. Because genetic alteration, genetic engineering, all these things is a new frontier of uncharted territory. That you can make a lot of money through it. You can build a fortune, even if it's not through the most ethical or peaceful means. And the auctioneer agrees to help him sell these dinosaurs and brings in a bunch of people to the Lockwood estate. And Maisie has been has heard about this. She told her grandfather, but he said, don't worry, I will deal with this tomorrow. You need to go to bed. The boat gets to the mainland, and the trucks unload all the dinosaurs. Then they head to the Lockwood estate, and but unfortunately, right before they are going to make a run for it in their truck to get the police, Owen and Claire are caught. Franklin has been commandeered by the mercenaries because they didn't recognize him. They don't know each other, basically, so he was commandeered to do some physical labor, like carrying ropes and stuff. So we don't see him for a while. But Owen and Claire are caught by the mercenaries, who realized that something was amiss when they saw Claire driving the truck. They recognized her, so they caught her. And they are thrown into a cell with the dinosaurs, basically, by themselves. And, right before that, Maisie had gone down to the underground lab where Eli had shown the auctioneer what was going on and what they were going to do. And we see Henry Wu again, who is talking with Eli Mills, as Maisie has just watched this video about Blue and Owen, how Blue feels empathy rather than seeing weakness in Owen as something to attack. She sees it as something to be curious about, to care for, to do something about. So Blue shows empathy and more human emotions, or emotions that we associate with humans. And Henry Wu, he's talking to Eli that the Indoraptor isn't ready. What you have is a prototype. It needs a mother to attach to so you can have authority over it. This one, it only has the baser qualities, as well as some human-made traits. And Eli just keeps hammering Dr. Wu about the cost, and that it's all about the money, and that's all this matters. This is about making profit. And all this time, Maisie, she's trying to hide from them, but she accidentally gets too close to the Indoraptor's cage. We don't know what it is. We know what it is at that point, and it starts stroking her hair with its claw after she crosses this red line. And she runs after it roars at her, and Eli catches her and basically locks her in her room. And then her caretaker, when Eli tells the caretaker, keep her in there, she says, Mr. Lockwood wants to see you. It's very important. Well, Eli is talking with Lockwood when Lockwood is telling him, you basically thought you could get away with this under my own roof. And Eli basically tries to defend himself, saying, you asked me to lead your fortune into the future, and I have done that. And obviously Lockwood, he's like, damn you! You pick up that phone and call the police. It'll be easier to believe from you. And Eli goes over to the phone, which is sitting on a pillow, and he says, John Hammond was right. You did a very unholy thing. I'm not the only guilty one. And he picks up a pillow instead of the phone and heads over to Lockwood. And Eli and Ken Wheatley, the mercenary, they are talking to Owen and Claire in their cell at this point, where Eli is trying to apologize to Claire. I didn't mean to get you caught up in this. We just needed the raptor. And he says, listen, we both exploited these animals. We're both guilty. And Claire says, I never did anything illegal. And he says, listen, we both exploited them for money. You put them in a cage. I just had the integrity to admit what I'm doing. Weaponizing dinosaurs. And he tells Owen, you're the one who made the breakthrough, my friend. You're the one who showed us that raptors can follow orders and can be controlled. And he gets a little too close to the cage. And Owen grabs him by the arm, and he looks like he's going to break his hand. Ken Wheatley threatens to shoot him. Claire gets up and stops Owen. And then when Eli says, trying to say something to her again, she pulls him by like his tie and pulls him forward and hits his head against the bars, which breaks his glasses. And Ken Wheatley says, what should we do with them? And Eli says, as far as anyone's concerned, they burned up on the mountain with the island. And we head to the auction, where we see the auctioneer selling off all these different dinosaurs. He's giving this big hype about them to these very rich people who are obviously not the most ethical of people. Like, they're all rich people, but they're not ethical, basically. And maybe flat out illegal stuff, too. And at that point, Claire and Owen are kind of blaming themselves about what's happened. And they hear this loud bang or boom in the cell next to them, which holds one of the dinosaurs that has a dome skull that's really, really... I think it was one of the pachyderms. I'm not entirely sure. But it's one of those that when they fight, they do this with their skulls. They bang into each other. And Owen decides he's going to use that. And he starts whistling. And it starts hitting the brick walls on the brick wall that... is towards Owen, and it starts bending, pushing in the bricks and breaking the wall. And finally, when it does, Owen uses that whistle again. He gets up on the cage gate, on the cell gate, and basically whistles, dodges the ramming, and it breaks down the gate in the bars, and it breaks out. And that breaks out Owen and Claire, who they head to the elevator door to see if they can do anything, and they run into Maisie, who, even though she was locked in her room, she had used a coat hanger to push the key out of the lock and then pull it underneath her door on a mat. Very clever girl. And got out, and she used you know those old laundry chutes that have the elevator thing on it? Well, that's exactly what she used to get around the house. And the first place she went to when she got out of her room, was to her grandfather, and she went to go see him and tell him what was going on. And of course, he is dead. He passed away. And Eli had come up there and told, and Maisie grabs this book, this photo album that has pictures of herself, her grandfather, and her caretaker. And Eli gets up there and he's talking to the caretaker about how it's a tragedy that Lockwood is dead. You're relieved of your duty. You can go home. I will take care of Maisie now. And she's gone down to the lab. And Owen and Claire find her and they talk to her. And she recognizes Owen from the video. And basically they get her to befriend them. And she takes them around the mansion and shows them. And they see the new Indoraptor, which is a bigger raptor. Like, it's huge, but it's not as big as the Indominus. It's much smaller, but it has a long gold stripe, just like blue, going down its back. And it's a prototype, as the auctioneer says, but people start bidding on it. and Eli gives the go-ahead to sell it. Henry Wu isn't happy about this. He says, listen, you can't sell it. It's not ready. And if you do this, others will be able to work on it. And he says, we'll make more. And Wu's like, so will they. So Wu, I'll give his perspective at the end of this. But he's definitely not happy. He walks away, he goes back to his lab. And Owen says, we can't let that thing leave alive. We can't let it leave this building, because they see how it's been trained, which is, or at least designed, which is that they use a laser to pinpoint the target, and then they use an acoustic sound from the gun to trigger the attack. And it's extremely aggressive. It's relentless. It has a heightened sense of smell. It has all the qualities of a raptor with the almost intelligence of a human. It is a very, very dangerous animal. And at that moment, and finally, Owen figures out a plan, because he finds that pachyderm again, and he uses the elevator that he manages to get to work to bring it up to the auctioneer, to the audience, and it starts causing havoc, ramming into people, knocking people aside. And Owen gets in there, and he starts fighting with the guards. Everybody starts running for their lives, and Owen basically manages to break the machine that keeps the cage of the Indoraptor where it is. He breaks the machine so that it can't be taken back to the elevator. And that's when things start to unravel, because once that happens, Eli tries to make a run for it. The pachyderm gets out into the open above ground and takes off into the woods. Wheatley, when he sees this, he goes into the auction place. He goes back to where the audience was, and he finds the Indoraptor in its cage, and he tranks it, because he says, I didn't see you on the island. And he decides to take a souvenir, so he opens up the cage, of course, like the idiot he is, and he tries to take one of the Indoraptor's teeth. And obviously the Indoraptor was feigning being unconscious. And then it bites off his arm and swallows it. And as he's starting to sob and say, no, 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 it seems like it's stopping for the moment, but then obviously it eats him. And we see the auctioneer make a run for the elevator, and he's obviously scared out of his mind. There's a few other people in the elevator who are hiding, and he gets them to move out of the way. The woman who sees the Indoraptor killing Wheatley screams. It comes for the elevator because its cage is unlocked. And Eversole gets the... Eversole, that was the guy's name, I'm sorry. That was the auctioneer's name, Eversole. He shuts the elevator, gets the elevator to get moving, to go up. The door's shut before the Indoraptor can get in, and they are about to head up. And then its tail hits the control switch for the elevator, the buttons and stuff. And the elevator opens back up. There's all these flashing lights. Eversole turns around. The Indoraptor's coming for them. It kills them all. And then we flash over to Eli and two of his guards, who have caught Owen, Claire, and Maisie, and they're discussing they're not discussing. Eli's telling Maisie to come with him. Owen and Claire are saying, we're going to put a stop to this. This is over. You've got your money and just go. And he says, you can't put it back in the box. You can't put all this back in the box. You already unleashed it. And then, of course, when he tells Maisie to come with him, and he's like, oh, you're going to protect her? Because Owen and Claire aren't letting her go. Obviously, and Maisie doesn't want to go with him because she's scared of him now. And he says, oh, you think you're going to take care of her? You have no idea what she is. Lockwood never had a granddaughter. He just wanted his daughter back, and he had the technology. So obviously that indicates that Lockwood and Hammond had a falling out over human cloning, which is what Lockwood did. He brought his daughter back. And then the Indoraptor comes in and kills the two guards. Eli makes another run for it. And this begins the chase and the hide and seek between Claire, Owen, Maisie, and the Indoraptor throughout the mansion. And at the same time, Zia, who is handcuffed to the cage of the Velociraptor Blue, Henry Wu is in his lab again, and Blue is in the cage. And we see Franklin, who has been, I guess, forced to become a lab technician at that point. He's got on the white coat, the white cap, and Wu is giving him orders. Wu is telling him to get me a kit so we can get a blood, we can draw blood and stuff. And he tells Zia to help him, and she says, nope, not going to do that. This blood's contaminated. And he says, I designed this animal, every cell in its body. It's pure. And she's like, yeah, but I used a Tyrannosaurus Rex's blood for a transfusion, so it's a sock drawer in there. And he's like, you what? And then Franklin comes through and tranks Henry Wu with a dart. And he grabs the keys for the handcuffs from him and unlocks Zia. Two of the guards, one of them drags Henry Wu away while the other one is threatening them with an electric prod and tells them to get away from the door, from the cage. But Zia, of course, she opens the cage from behind her like this, one of those pull latches, and the cage opens. She pulls it towards her and Franklin so that they're basically kind of covered by it in a corner. And Blue comes out, kills one of the guards, the one with the electric prod. Zia and Franklin make a run for it. Another guard comes through with a gun and he starts shooting, but Blue's tail knocks him over, and it hits a canister of what looks to be flammable gas of some kind. And at that point, she also kills the guy with a gun. And Franklin and Zia are make it run out of the lab at that point. And then Blue, we can see her going, and she sees the gas and smells it and makes a run for it. And an explosion knocks her through a glass window, but she's okay. She gets up and runs. And then the chase between the Indoraptor, Owen, Maisie, and Claire hits its climax because they're in this room where we see a Triceratops fossil, and it's chasing after them. It's tearing apart the room. It's tearing apart these these round staircase. It's tearing apart the wooden banisters, and they manage to turn off the lights and hide from it for a few minutes. But then it breaks through the glass of one of these, I guess you would say enclosures, displays, one of the glass displays that holds some of the fossils. And it's knocking aside all this wood that's really heavy. And Owen gets caught in it, and Claire and Maisie are trying to avoid the claws, but one of the claws sinks into Claire's leg, which I think there's a problem with that scene, but I'll get to that later. And she gets Maisie to run, and Maisie heads to her room and manages just barely to avoid the Indoraptor by using the elevator again. The small elevator in that laundry chute, pulling herself up. And Claire tells Owen to go after her. He says, I can't leave you. She pulls him in, kisses him, and tells him, go, go, and he does. And Maisie is hiding in her bed under her sheets, and the Indoraptor comes up through the windows. It climbs up on the roof, comes down to her bedroom window, her bedroom balcony window, and opens the door latch. And it's using its claws to reach out to her, trying to like pet her, like it's been doing, but it's also growling and showing it's drooling. And then Owen comes in with one of the guns, and he shoots the Indoraptor 3 times. And it starts to go down. And then it gets back up. He backs against the wall. He's out of bullets. And that's when Blue comes in and attacks the Indoraptor to defend Owen. And Owen and Maisie get out of go through the window again. And even Blue does get knocked aside at one point, and the Indoraptor comes after them. And they're on the roof of this kind of glass roof with a rounded roof of glass with a metal along the very top, metal ridge. And they get to the edge of it, but they can't go any further. And they're getting ready to basically die because the Indoraptor is coming for them. It's really smart because when it puts its foot down, it breaks part of the glass, but it manages to pull itself back up, and it's being very careful at that point. And Claire comes up with the gun and starts banging it against the metal, making the noise, and it starts roaring at her. And then she aims the laser at Owen, who's like this. And then she sends the acoustic out with the button, and it jumps at him as he dives under it. And it starts to fall through the roof because of its weight, but it grabs onto the metal ridge and pulls itself back up. And at that point, Owen is like, what do we do? And then we see through the lightning and the rain, just like in the opening, we see Blue on the rooftop where she gives another kind of roar / snarl, and jumps at the Indoraptor, They fall through the roof together, and they go around and around. So one's on top, one's on the bottom, and then they hit the Triceratops skeleton, the spikes part. And the Indoraptor is killed on that, while Blue is unharmed. While Zia and Franklin, after their escape, they had found one of the control rooms to the basement, the cells for the dinosaurs, and they see that there's a problem with the ventilation system, and so the gas is leaking out, and it's suffocating the animals. And so they've been trying to get it to reboot. They've been doing what they can to try and slow it, to stop it, but it's not working enough. And so the animals are slowly dying of this asphyxiation, basically. And they find Owen, Claire, Maisie, and tell them what's going on. And they go to the control room, and Claire unlocks the cages to let them out into this, like, really, really crowded now because of all the dinosaurs. This really crowded area. But she has this button she can push. It says, push for emergency to open gates. So it would let them out into the open world, basically. And Owen tells her, be careful, Claire. We're not on an island anymore. You press that button, there's no going back. And we have to remember, she's dedicated the last, 3 years, this is 2018, to saving these dinosaurs. And now she's just been confronted with the idea that she's the one who exploited these animals. Owen's the one who showed the world that they could train raptors. What do they do now? And so she doesn't do it. She doesn't push the button. She just condemns herself to watch these animals die. She doesn't want to watch it, but she makes herself, obviously, and Owen is holding her. And as the dinosaurs are slowly dying, the gate opens. And we see Maisie has pushed the button. And she says, I had to. They're just like me, alive. And that's when we see the stampede of dinosaurs going out of the doors. And we see Eli again, who has the Indominus Rex's DNA bone in the case. It was sent to him by Henry Wu to get it to a safe place. And he is trying to get into his car along with another 2 of his guards again. And they hear the rumbling. One of the guards gets grabbed by a flying dinosaur and dropped onto the hood of the car, where he's obviously dead. The other one gets trampled by the other dinosaurs, and Eli hides under the car as it gets crushed, and he's screaming the whole time. And finally, things seem okay. The dinosaurs seem to be gone. So he gets out from under the car, adjusts his suit, and starts to grab the Indominus Rex's bone. And we see these different things. We see a Carnotaur, the Carnotaur, in the far background. We see these Compies, which are these tiny little dinosaurs that we saw in the Lost World movie that ate this one guy. And we see them on the truck, and we think, wait, could it be the Carnotaur or the Compies that are going to get him? And as he's picking up the bone, it's the T-Rex that grabs him out of the screen and starts eating him and killing him. And the Carnotaur comes up and grabs one of his legs and pulls that apart, and the Rex roars at the Carnotaur and sends it away. So that's the end of Eli. And the Rex gives one more roar, just like in the previous movies, and walks away. We see Owen in the group. They come out at the front of the mansion, and they see Blue again, and Owen tries to tell Blue to come with them, that he'll take her to a safe place, and he looks over at one of the cages that's still there, that's still intact. Blue looks at it, and then Blue takes off going away into the wild. And at that point, we see basically what's basically a newscast about a new meeting about what to do about these dinosaurs now that they're loose in mainland USA, basically, or across the world, because we see a lot of them being shipped everywhere because of the auction. They were immediately taken after they were paid for, so a lot of these people have these dinosaurs now. And we also see Henry Wu. He's still got his the embryos. He still has his research. He still has all these different things. So Wu is still there. He's not dead. And we see Ian Malcolm giving another opinion / speech about how the radical change isn't something that just happens out of the norm. It's actually part of our society. It's part of our very existence. So this is something that we should have expected because this was man-made, and that and we see Owen and Claire driving through I guess Northern California. They're driving this old car, and they've got Maisie in the back seat with them. So they're obviously keeping an eye on her and taking care of her. But, and we see all these different dinosaurs across the map. And we see the Tyrannosaurus break through what appears to be a zoo's fence, because there's a moat as well, to a lion enclosure where it roars at the lion roars right back, and they're separated by too much so they can't reach each other, but they're roaring at each other. And we see Blue in what looks like the Mojave Desert, which is in California, near LA. So she's obviously going to make her home there. And that's when Ian Malcolm says, "Welcome to Jurassic World." And that's where the movie ends. Now, I'm going to give a few critiques about this movie. This one I have more critiques about than the previous one, but only because I think the movies, to me, I'm a very cynical person, I think, but I also want to see something new and I want to see more nuance. For example, I didn't have a problem with this at first when I first watched the movie, but as I continue watching it and continue thinking about it, it bugs me more. The first thing, the submersible. In the very first scene where we see it getting the bone of the Indominus and then it's trying to leave, it gets eaten. I don't think the mosasaur would have swallowed that thing because it was made of metal. It would have crunched down, spit it out. Those guys would have come back up, hopefully. Maybe they would have still been eaten, but... And then the getaway from the T-Rex with the ladder and the helicopter, and then getting eaten by the mosasaur. It's like, really? Really? That guy didn't do anything evil. He was just there doing what he was told to do, and he gets eaten just when you think he's safe. Okay. Okay. I could have done with just him getting away from the T-Rex at that moment, because sometimes the bad guys, or the guys that aren't the greatest, get away. And it's not poetic justice for them to get eaten. It's poetic justice for them to face the justice system and actually lose everything they've ever loved. But that's just one thing. Then we come to Ken Wheatley, the villain. Definitely just a bad dude. Like, he's a tough guy. He was probably a soldier at one point, but he's just a bad guy. He makes no apologies about being in it for the money, being a hired gun. And for him to make the stupid mistake of going into the Indoraptor's cage and to get eaten just because he wants one of its teeth or because he thinks he can get more money. Like, even a mercenary wouldn't be that stupid. Yes, they think with their wallet, but not like that when they know they could get eaten. Did he deserve to get eaten? Probably. But still. Just a dissociation right there. Oh, and his line when Zia tells him, collect your own damn samples for Blue. And he's like, what a nasty woman. That's something going back to a political statement from our election, which... Then we come to what I think is my biggest gripe. Eli Mills. The one thing I will say is this character, we know for a fact that he was only in it for the money. He was pretending to be a good guy at first, obviously, and it turns out he's complete garbage. He's only in it for the money. And he wants to build the fortune and do things, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get there. Like, he was willing to let Claire and Owen die. He didn't care. He doesn't care about Dr. Wu's interest in the science of it. He's not interested in building something new. He's not interested in ethics. In fact, he puts that on its head. He turns that on its head. He says, hey, I know I'm being unethical, but at least I know what I'm doing. You were trying to be ethical and had no idea what you were really doing. To, like, Claire and Owen, like, you guys were doing what you wanted to do because of your curiosity and because of your determination. But guess what? The rest of us can use that how we want, whether it's ethical or not. And it's obvious he doesn't care that what he's doing is plain out illegal. He's all about the money. Completely. And then for him to kill Lockwood with the pillow. I just didn't see Eli having that in him. I really did not see him being... that. It takes a certain... I guess he is a coward because he killed the guy. But at the same time... I thought he could have just, added something to his medicine at that point to put him to sleep. But to put a pillow over his face? I don't know. I just a little dissociation for me somehow. Like, I don't think Eli had that in him to actually do it with his own hands. I think he's too much of a coward. And then, how he got killed. Listen, I can understand it being ironically satisfying that the very creatures he was trying to save so he could sell them, eating him because he got confident for a second and he let his smarminess show. Like, no, 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 no. I don't want Eli to get eaten. I want him to be exposed. And I want everything he's ever done, all the money he's ever made, his reputation, his intellect, everything he's ever done to just be wiped away by news reports. I want everything about him to be just disappear. And he have to face the world as the scumbag he was. And you know what? Instead he gets eaten. He gets eaten. I get it. I really do. That's part of the movie. We're watching a movie where dinosaurs are predators and they're going to eat people if they get the chance. Well, most of them will. But it's like, that's not how the real world works. You don't get this ironically satisfying justice most of the time. If you want justice, you have to go through a system. This doesn't have that. I wanted to see him go through a system where, or maybe a newscast saying, this man has been arrested for this, this, and this, and this. He's been charged with this, this, and this. He's been found guilty, 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 blah, 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 blah. No. All we get is another villain getting eaten. Ironic justice doesn't normally happen. So I want to keep it that way because it's real life. I understand it's a movie. I understand it's drama. But still, can't we make it more like real life? Even though real life kind of sucks. But other than that, those are my gripes. Those are my gripes. The positive things, I really loved how they used Blue this time. It was amazing how Blue was the center of attention this time. And that it was Owen and her's relationship that we learned more about Blue and the other raptors, at least a little bit. And we learned that they actually did have a relationship. So I really did like that. Maisie being a clone, I don't know. Honestly, John Hammond and Lockwood, them having that disagreement between each other, I mean, that's just par for the course, in my opinion. Like, there's going to be disagreements. So, Maisie being a clone, that's just a new thing in the movie, basically. Nothing huge, to me at least. Her setting the dinosaurs loose, that I was surprised by at first because I thought they were going to let them die in this movie. Like, other than maybe one or two that managed to get away, which was like Blue and the pachyderm. But that was it. That did surprise me in the theaters. Afterwards, it did not. Obviously not surprise me when you think about it. Now, my final thing is on the character of Henry Wu. In the first movie, we thought, yeah, he's pretty cool. By the Jurassic World, we thought, okay, he's a scientist who he's done what he's been told to do. He's very fascinated by this stuff, but he's also got a certain sense of pride in what he's done. And he's also doing all these little side things that maybe he shouldn't be doing. But he's not a bad guy. And I still think that he's not a bad guy. It's just that he's a scientist. And he wants to put his mark on the world scientifically. And the way he's done it is through these dinosaurs and through the genetic alteration, genetic engineering and stuff. And so when his prototype is being sold, he doesn't stay silent, which is good for him. I'm glad he spoke up and said, this isn't for sale, it's not ready, and all these. But he does it out of a sense of selfishness as well, because he says they're going to be able to make their own dinosaurs now and their own Indoraptors. They're going to be able to do this themselves, and they're going to mess it up. Obviously, Henry is extremely smart. He's extremely scientific. And we hear everything from him about how a wolf is not that genetically different from a dog, but there's this huge gray area in between, and he calls that art. Which it makes sense to a certain degree. But that's what I think. I think that most of the characters were not well fleshed out this time, except for Claire, Owen to a certain extent, and Henry Wu. The rest of the characters were kind of blah, except Blue. Blue was very, very well fleshed out. And I look forward to seeing her in the next movie more than the other characters. So that's where I stand on this movie. I give it a B+, because the movie itself was good. The movie itself is good for anybody who just wants a regular movie to escape into a classic story. So that's my take on it. I hope you enjoyed this review. I know it was extremely long compared to the others, but there was a lot to rant about. So thank you for listening. Charlie Black,